Welcome to All About Hopkinton, the HCAM original program highlighting the people and organizations that make Hopkinton a great place to live. I'm Jim Cousins, your host, sitting in for Mary Arnott. Today we have with us from Educationist Group, an international student placement agency, the Northeast Manager, Rebecca Hollenberger, and local coordinator, Ann Northup. I'd like to thank you both for being on our show today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, so first let's get the basics. What does Educationist Group do?
Well, Educationist Group is, like you said, an international student placement agency that places international high school students at Hopkinton High School.
Okay.
And they also live in the community with local host families.
Okay, and I assume it's not just Hopkinton. I'm sure that your company does more than.
That's correct. We place international students in high schools across the United States. This year we have about 1,500 students and are expecting more this coming school year.
Okay, and you're the East Coast manager? Northeast manager?
Yep, the Northeast manager. So I oversee several high schools in Massachusetts, New England, New York, and New Jersey.
Okay, and so Ann, you're our local coordinator?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I live in Southborough, but right on the Hopkinton line.
Okay.
So it's very convenient for me to meet with host families, meet with students.
Okay, so let's just start and ask Rebecca, how did you come into this line of work?
Really, I became interested in it after having studied abroad in high school. I went to Italy, sorry, not in high school, in college, like many American students do. And I just loved traveling and working with international people. So I got into teaching English as a second language and then helping students get placed in host family homes through that. And for 3 years now, I've been with Educationist Group doing the same thing. So it's interesting that students from abroad come over for high school when it's more normal for American students to go abroad in college. But
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. And how about you, Ann? How'd you end up here?
Well, I'm a retired art teacher.
Okay.
And so after my retirement, I was looking for other opportunities for working with students, working with families. And I saw this opportunity online, and this was about 8 years ago, and I've been working with education ever since.
Oh, so are you an artist?
I am. I haven't been painting much lately, but yes.
Okay.
And I did a lot of field trips when I was teaching students. So we'd go into Boston. We even did trips to New York City, and I just love kind of informal working with kids and parents. Also, my own children both live and work in Austria, so I just have a kind of international attitude about culture and getting to know people from different cultures.
Wow, sounds like you're in the right place then.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, so let's get kind of the big picture. How many students are we talking about, and how many countries do students come from?
Sure. In general, from Educationist Group, Hopkinton might accept, let's say, between 5 and 7 students each year. In the United States, we have students from over 40 different nationalities. But in Hopkinton, year to year, we generally see students from China, Brazil, Western Europe, other Asian countries. So, and this year, I think we're going to have about 5 or 6 again.
Okay.
Yep.
And how do the students get paired with Hopkinton?
So Hopkinton is what we call one of our select schools. So students are actually looking at lists of many, many different high schools throughout the United States, and they're hand selecting Hopkinton. So they go through quite an extensive application process, and Hopkinton and Educationist Group will review their applications, give them an interview to make sure that their English speaking abilities are up to standards, and then Hopkinton will let Educationist Group know if the student has been accepted or not, and then the student will come.
So I personally, like, that was the first question I would always come to my mind. Is the international student going to speak English? And so yes.
Yes, and Hopkinton, as one of our high schools, does have pretty high standards for that, and rightly so. I mean, these students, this is not an English speaking program, this is an American high school experience program. So they're being put into mainstream English speaking classes and not receiving really ESL support, so they need to be able to hold their own and get the grades to pass the year.
Okay, so so the students are selecting Hopkinton, and how do they get approved? I mean, do more than 5 or 6 select Hopkinton? How does that get matched?
Yeah, I mean, Hopkinton is really careful about, I would say, picking the cream of the crop, making sure that they have the grades, the teacher recommendations, the grades from their home country, and looking at a well-rounded student applicant to make sure that they're going to succeed this year.
So the school system makes the final determination?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And only then do I get informed that I have a student to place.
Okay. So when you spring into action,
Yes.
what does that look like? What happens?
I'm sent an application of the student. I read it over and get a sense of who the student is and which all I can do is read that application and make inferences from it.
Okay.
So it behooves the student to share as much as possible about who they really are. And then I start with families I already know, because I've been working with families for quite a while now, and I know their preferences and just the family dynamic and what students work well in which families because of the family preferences.
Oh.
And so then I will start making emails or phone calls and say, I have a student, I think that this is a student you would like. Would you be interested in seeing an application?
Okay.
And if they're already one of my families there and have an application on file, then because the query check has been done, I can send that application to the family to have them look at it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's so interesting.
So,
okay.
so
All right.
families also are going through this process of accepting or not accepting a student into their home based on this application.
Okay. Now, we mentioned high school. Is it only high school students?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
Are they typically juniors or seniors or sophomore? How would that go?
They're typically seniors.
Okay.
Occasionally we've had a freshman or a sophomore, but most of them are seniors. And the ones from Europe often go back for a fifth year in Europe, and sometimes the grades here don't even count because
Really?
the European school doesn't count them, and then they take that senior year over again. That often happens with our German students. In Italy, the grades do count, but they're having a senior year or a fourth year with us, and then they have a fifth year back in Italy.
Okay.
And so the courses do count and the grades do count. With the Chinese, on the other hand, they are usually here for their senior year, sometimes after spending a junior year at a different high school. And they apply to colleges in the fall, just like all our seniors here in Hopkinton do.
Yeah.
And now they've just been accepted because here we are into May, and most of them have just made their college decisions, but they're going on to college here.
Oh, I see. Wow. Yeah. So is it like so they come in for 1 year, and they may go somewhere else for another year, but your program is typically like a 1 year, kind of like a college semester abroad type thing.
Sure. Yes. Yes, for our program on a public high school, students can come for 1 year, like Ann was explaining, on a different type of program. They might have already been here for a year or maybe in a private school, but at Hopkinton, a student is only going to be able to do 1 full year or a semester if they choose to do a shorter experience.
Okay. So I'm wondering if, like, for example, if a student comes and spends a year here knowing that their grades aren't going to count, right? That really speaks to what is motivating them. Can you give me a sense of like what students are telling you about like why they're interested in coming to Hopkinton?
I think we almost always see in those cases that a student just really wants to experience the American education system and all of the extracurricular activities that are offered. So they often say, especially Europeans will say, their school or their education system is so rigid and they sort of don't have a say in the classroom, and they've always read and they've seen that school here is maybe more interactive, or the students are given a little bit more opinion in the classroom, and so I don't think that if you see a student that is not coming here for the grades to count, I don't think that's a red flag that they're not going to do well or excel. I think they really just want to experience what it's like in an American high school and take part in all the sports and the American holidays and the activities like football games, things that they don't get at home.
Yeah. So I think that's really fascinating because, I mean, this is an educational exchange. Students coming here and they're getting, an educational experience. But to me, there's got to be a real cultural exchange type experience going on between the students and the host families.
Of course, that's what we're promoting.
and there's less of a cultural difference with the Europeans. But it nevertheless is definitely a cultural experience. With the German students are definitely different than the Norwegian students, and definitely different than the Italians, and certainly the Brazilians as well. Of course, they're not Europeans, but they're still Caucasian, and so you absolutely get cultural differences. More cultural differences with the Chinese, because their culture is more different than the Western culture. So, so it's a bigger shift in understanding, I think, for some of our American families.
Yeah.
I did want to take you up on the thing about the students that come and their grades don't count, because Germany, I mentioned, is one of those countries where it doesn't count. And one of our stars was a German boy who came as a junior, and going back as a senior, he made the soccer team as a junior, and he was prom king.
Wow.
It was really amazing, but it's a great example of and he kept up his grades.
Yeah.
To be acceptable. And I did also want to mention that our company has a standard that kids need to maintain a C or better grade in all their subjects, not an average across the board, but in every subject. And certainly sometimes at the beginning especially, they can start off lower, but they bring it up, because they're hearing English all the time for the first time. But they bring it up, and they understand that this is a standard they have to maintain. And we find that I haven't had a problem with grades at Hopkinton High School in quite a while.
Wow. Yeah. So I was just thinking as you were talking, that was like, what a great American experience, that boy had. Yeah. Let's talk for a moment about being a host family. You did mention you get Corey checked. What other type of requirements does host family have?
Sure. Well, we are looking for local Hopkinton host families. That's going to be the easiest for a student who's attending Hopkinton High School. And really, we're looking for families that are willing to welcome a young person into their home as another member of the family for the school year or the school semester. So these kids are going to join the families for meals. They're going to join in on chores and follow the household rules. They're going to get on the bus and go to school just like a high school child would. And do day-to-day family activities with the host family. So we're not looking for a room and board type offer. We're really looking for a family who's willing to share their love and family support to a student, and in return, make those relationships that last a lifetime and learn a lot about a different culture themselves.
Yeah. So, Anne, you mentioned that the Chinese culture is very different than the American culture. Is there any kind of preparatory work that goes on with the families to, expose them to Chinese customs?
Yes, I talk separately. I have an orientation for all the families.
Okay.
And then I talk separately with the host families of Chinese students to prepare them a little bit for differences in eating habits, for example, and things that might come up, and how it's just different. It's not one way isn't right or wrong, but it's just different, and how we need to expect the kids to take on our habits when we're here.
Yeah. So that's what I find interesting, because my kids have gone on trips to different countries, and I've always felt that I would starve to death if I went, because I like really basic kind of food. So do the students run into difficulties? Do they? Is it okay?
One thing that's nice that Education started this past year is that for every family hosting an Asian student, Education sends a rice cooker before the students arrive.
Okay.
And just because that's such a staple for the Asian diet, and we don't expect families to go out and buy all sorts of new gadgets. So it's sort of a gift and a thank you for host families. And that was a real hit this year, because it's sort of, no matter what you serve on a day-to-day basis, if you have rice, they're going to really appreciate that. And,
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was a nice little gesture,
Yeah.
I think. But cooking and meals can be a great way to get to know each other and get to learn about cultures. So we really, if there's sort of some food issues going on, we encourage students and families to work together to, go shopping together, go to an Asian market, maybe pick out some staples and cook a meal together so that they can show you something that they like to eat and share their food with you.
They
Wow.
do. Sometimes students will go shopping together, sometimes with the host family, or they will take the train into Boston to Chinatown and do the shopping.
Okay.
But come back, and then it's like a party, and the kids and the parents are cooking together, or the kids take over, and then they have a big meal for the family. It's really fun.
Yeah.
And the parents get a kick out of it, and it's always fun not to cook.
I think we keep focusing on, Chinese students being so different, but they're really, very well behaved, pleasant kids. It's just that I think, host families getting into this might be really looking for just something that they're used to, maybe like a really outgoing kid or an active kid. A lot of times Chinese students, because they're going to college the next year here, they're just very focused on their studies and academics.
Okay.
And sometimes that means a little bit more studying and, wanting to be in a quiet room, focusing on studying and homework. So we just encourage families and students to, to really pull the students out of their rooms a little bit, help them come out of
Right.
their shell, but it's not to say that they're bad kids or
Yeah.
anything. It's just, a little bit of a different focus. And the interesting thing is we have 3 Chinese students left for this coming school year that we are still looking to place for
Okay,
in
fall of
Hopkinton.
2017.
That's right,
17,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
A boy and 2 girls. And one of to follow up on what Rebecca was just saying, for families who don't want to do a lot of driving to social events, they are homebodies for many of them, and
Yeah.
so they're not asking for the driving to social things, parties at night and things like that might come up with more social kids.
Yeah.
On the other hand, these particular students that are coming in the fall seem quite interested in taking part in like swimming, the swim team, and one is it's very active in the airplane kind of model airplane club where he
Okay.
is in China and has won design contests. So I'm sure he'll be signing up for some club or creating a club at the high school that will do that.
Yeah.
And let's see, besides swimming, tennis, there are some. I expect the kids that will come in will be interested in getting involved in social activities at the school,
Yeah.
but not so much in the evening.
Okay.
So that would be a difference
Yeah. Yeah.
than European students.
And it's just from September to the end of school, and then they return home?
Well, so for these 3 students in question, because they're seniors, it will be through graduation, which is usually the first week in June. So
Yeah.
it is about, between a 9 and a 10-month program. So our students arrive right before, like within 4 or 5 days before the first day of school.
Yeah.
And then within a week or so after graduation, they'll be going on to their next steps. Sometimes that's going back to China. Sometimes they're going right to their next destination, which will be
Okay.
college. And I know you probably want to know how families can become host families if they
Right.
want to.
Yep.
So we have an online application process, and like we were talking about before, there is a background check involved in that. And so after going through the application, just about your home and your family, Anne, who is our local coordinator, would then set up a time to come meet with the family, go over any questions with them, kind of prepare them for the experience, and show the students that we do have left a place. And then Anne is she's the go-to person throughout the year of experience. I mean, if there's just little questions about grades or classes or where do I go to bring a student to the doctor, she's that main point of contact. She's a local, so she knows.
Right.
And she's been doing it for so many years. And then, once a student and a family get matched, we get ready to prepare them for the experience ahead.
I never even thought of that. Do you guys have like a medical plan that covers the students?
yeah.
Yes,
Of
we
course.
do. We have insurance, and when Rebecca mentioned the doctor, our insurance covers visits to urgent care. I know there is a new urgent care facility right here in Hopkinton, so they don't need to pay a copay. They would just go. They'll come with a card. And they can also go to a hospital if they need something serious. Then there is a copay for that. But they can both. They're taken care of with their insurance.
Right.
Yeah, students come with medical insurance. They come with their own spending money for anything like field trips or sports fees or school supplies fees. What we're asking families to do is, cover the meals in the home.
Yeah. Make sure they get to school.
Exactly. Yeah. And we do offer a monthly stipend to help offset the costs because teenagers eat a lot and they're expensive. So just to help host families be able to make this commitment, we do offer that.
Right. Now, if somebody was interested in becoming a host family, did they talk to you, Rebecca? Did they contact you, Anne?
They contact me.
They contact you.
Occasionally it's happened that they've contacted Rebecca because they've seen some communication from our company. But usually they contact me directly. I call and have a conversation with them. If they contact me by email and they ask questions that are appropriate to answer by email, I will respond first by email. But we communicate, find out. I talk about the students. I can send student statements that the students have written about themselves even before I send the app. The application has to be sent after the query check of the parents.
Okay.
But I can send little pictures and statements so the parent gets an idea about who the students are that we're placing.
Right. All right. So you have email and phone, and we'll put that information on the screen just before the end credits, so they can get you.
I also want to mention, sometimes there are families who might be watching who would like to get involved but just can't make that 10-month commitment. But I would encourage them to call Anne anyway because we always have the need for temporary backup hosts.
Okay.
So if a long-term family has travel plans and they simply can't take the student with them, that family would be able to take a student for just a week at a time and help out in that way.
Okay.
We'd still need to complete an application for them.
Yeah.
And they would be paid for that time that they take a student for short term. Also, if a family doesn't have the space in their home, but they have a neighbor or a family member that they'd like to refer to our program, if that family becomes a successful host, we will pay a referral fee to the family who recommended them as a thank you. So there's lots of different ways to get involved.
All right.
Yeah. And I'm also available if a family is going away, sometimes during the school year, there's a wedding or some other family situation where it's inappropriate for the student to travel with them.
Yeah.
They'll come and stay with me, or they can stay with a friend that they've made. But I'm available for that kind of thing, as well as vacations.
All right. So our time is growing short, but I really want to touch upon it. I find it so interesting and so fascinating that, I am sure there must be great experiences. I'm sure that families take the kids out to Boston, or they, take them down to New York and kind of, it's like giving a child another, window into America, and that must be really fun.
Absolutely. Those are heartwarming stories.
Yeah. I just had a family return from Park City where they have a condo there, and the kids had a wonderful time. Some doing different things, horseback riding, and some didn't ski at all. but what happens when a family wants to take a trip like that is that they'll contact the natural parent, and the natural parent will contribute like the airfare and a share of if it costs extra to house the student. Often it doesn't, but if it does, they'll contribute. So it's not the expense that it might be to take that student along.
Right. I would also imagine there must be some relationships that are created. Does it ever go beyond the connection between the families and the students?
We've heard host families going in the future to weddings in foreign countries. I have students this year at another school who the two sons in the family already have their tickets to visit their host brother in Spain over the summer. So that's when you're taking in a child, you are becoming friends or family members really with that person for the rest of your lives. So these are incredible opportunities to make relationships all over the world for the rest of your life.
That's amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I had one family who was hosting a Chinese student. She happened to be going to China, and the family traveled miles to meet up with her family in China, and
Oh, yeah.
And get to know them, which is really something. And families that every year their kids come back on Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is too far for most of our international students to travel home over when they're in college. And so this family that's been hosting for me every year, their house is full of international students that are back there for Thanksgiving, and sometimes other times as well.
And that's what it's
They
all
keep
about.
up, Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Keep up with
fantastic.
them.
Yeah. All right, well, Anne and Rebecca, I'd like to thank you both for coming on the show and educating our viewers about this really cool opportunity.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jim.
Jim.
It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
All right. And if you'd like to learn more information about about hosting international students, visit their website located on the screen below. For everyone here at HCAM, I'm Jim Cousins, and thank you for watching this episode of All About Hopkinton. And make sure to watch for Anne's contact information on our screen before the end credits.
Welcome to Hopkinton Coffee Break. A very special dessert done by a woman from Hopkinton that I've started using regularly. We had your residents participating both as vendors and as shoppers, and that was so much fun. Real Hopkinton Housewives, if you're on Facebook, you will have a blast. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
It's been a great,
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you
See
too.
you guys.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Peralt, host of the program Meet Your Neighbor on HCAM TV.
Kids got so much on their plate, and they're traveling here and they're traveling there.
You know, they still need help from time to time.
My father always was outdoors. I mean, he grew up, he had pet baby squirrels.
This show introduces you to Hopkinton residents, the many interesting people who are our neighbors, and we invite them to share stories, experiences, insights, and observations from their lives.